Most people don't fail because they can't change. They fail because they're trying to change at the wrong level. Have you ever shifted something? A behaviour, a reaction, a habit, only to find yourself back in the same pattern weeks later? More disciplined for a while, more aware, more intentional, and then the old response returns. Not because you didn't try hard enough, not because you lacked insight, but because the system that produced the behaviour never reorganised. And this is where one of the most important distinctions in this work begins. The difference between change and transformation. They are not the same thing. Change modifies behaviour. Transformation reorganises the system that produces the behaviour. Change is behavioural. Transformation is physiological. Change requires effort. Transformation reduces effort. And most people are trying to create transformation using tools designed only for change. And this is why so much personal development feels exhausting, because effort is being applied to a system that is still organised around protection. Here's what that means. Change does not occur when an intervention is delivered. Change occurs when the nervous system recognises that it's safe to reorganise. And those are not always the same moment. You can deliver the right technique, use the correct language, apply the correct structure, and still not see stable change. Not because the method failed, but because the nervous system is not yet ready to reorganise. The nervous system does not reorganise based on intellectual understanding. It reorganises based on safety. If a part of the system still perceives a need for protection, it will maintain the existing organisation, even when the conscious mind wants something different, even when the individual is 100% committed, even when they fully understand the pattern. Because the nervous system's primary responsibility is not progress, it is protection. And protection will always override expansion. This is why two people can receive the exact same intervention, delivered in the exact same way, and experience completely different outcomes. One reorganises immediately, the other integrates gradually. And that difference is not motivation, it is readiness. And if you are a practitioner, this changes how you interpret what you see in the room. Instead of asking, did the intervention work? You begin asking, did the nervous system reorganise? And reorganisation is visible if you know what to look for. Breathing often deepens, muscle tone softens, posture adjusts without instruction. Speech pace stabilises. There are pauses, and they're not from confusion. They're actually from integration. And these pauses matter. They are not empty. They are the nervous system updating the internal model. And if you interrupt them by adding more technique, more explanation, more intensity, you interrupt completion. This is why pacing matters. Not just the pacing of language, but the pacing of intervention. Knowing when to act and knowing when to allow. Because integration is where change stabilizes. Many people and many practitioners feel pressure to do more, to enforce the shift, to ensure it holds. Yet doing more often destabilizes the reorganization that has already begun. The nervous system does not need to be convinced. It needs to be allowed to complete. Completion cannot be forced. It occurs when safety is recognized, and safety is communicated through presence, through regulation, through pacing, through allowing the system to update at its own speed. This is why practitioner state matters. Clients do not reorganise simply as a result of the words we use. They reorganise because their nervous system detects safety in the relational field. Safety allows protection to release. And when protection releases, reorganisation becomes possible. Now, here is the confronting part. If a pattern was created in protection, especially before you had language, you cannot think your way out of it. You can analyse it. You can even understand it. You can talk about it, but you cannot think your way out of a pattern that was formed biologically, because the pattern was never cognitive to begin with. It was protective. This is why behavioural change often requires maintenance, because the underlying organisation remains intact. Transformation is different. Transformation occurs when the nervous system no longer needs to maintain the original pattern for protection. At that point, behaviour changes naturally, not because you're forcing it, because the system itself has reorganised. And when the system reorganises, effort reduces. Change requires monitoring, whilst transformation becomes self-sustaining. You may notice that your responses are different, that situations affect you differently, that behaviours that once required discipline now occur naturally. And not because you're trying harder, because the internal map has changed. Transformation does not install something new. It simply allows the nervous system to release what is no longer necessary. And once that occurs, change does not need to be maintained. It maintains itself. And this is identity level work, not modifying behaviour, reorganising identity at the level where protection is formed. And this is the level that most personal development never reaches. It focuses on effort, on strategy, on behaviour, without addressing the organisation beneath it. If you are someone who has tried to change before and found yourself circling back to the same patterns, this is not a failure of willpower. It is a mismatch of level. And if you are a practitioner, then this distinction changes everything about how you interpret resistance, integration, and outcome. Transformation is not intensity. It is reorganisation. And reorganisation occurs when safety allows protection to release. When protection releases, identity stabilises. When identity stabilises, behaviour aligns. And not because you're forcing yourself, because the system is no longer organised around the past. That is the difference between change and transformation. And if you want to work at that level, whether it's personally or professionally, it requires depth. It requires understanding how the nervous system reorganises. It requires the development of practitioner state, because transformation is not installed, it is allowed.